Ryan, hi. Thanks very much for joining me. I'm very excited to talk to you because I've seen a lot of your content. I know you've got several thousand followers on YouTube now. They're following, like me, your journey to make $1 million in sports betting. I love your transparency that is your goal. And you said clearly that it might take a decade, it might take 40 years, but you're going to do it.
Yeah.
I think you're 20% through that targets.
Yeah, close to 200,000 in profit in total. It's probably a little bit over there, like in terms of my whole betting career, but for the challenge, that is around where it is. Yeah.
200 grand, and that started in 2017, so 7 years in.
Yeah, about 7 years in. Yeah.
So that's nice. So you're doing about 30 grand a year. Is that what you expect to? Do you have any sort of idea if that's what you're going to maintain, or is it going to drop off a little bit?
Well, it's dropped off a bit the last few years, actually. I think the UK betting market, there's not as many opportunities. It's harder to get money down, and then maybe my own kind of analysis or strategies are not as good as they were a couple of years ago, or they're not working as well, I should say. So yeah, there has been a little bit of a drop, but yeah, obviously it's been different year to year, as you'll know yourself from doing a lot of betting. Variance has a massive impact. Even over a year, you can be putting thousands of bets in. Each year can still be very different. So like the first 5 years, I made like between 20 and 30K pretty consistently, but I was doing a lot of match betting and arbing. So that's a lot more of just consistent profit rather than big ups and downs. And then the last like 3-4 years, I've been doing a lot more value betting. So it's fluctuated quite a bit in the last few years. So like my best year, I made nearly 40K, but then last year I only made I think it was like 8.5, 9K. So you can see it's quite different. But I'm still cracking on. I'm still making money. So yeah, it's all good.
And I'm right in saying you create your own systems, your own models, and your own methodologies as well.
I have some of my own systems, but they're mostly based around like market movements and things that I'm seeing. I don't like create my own models in terms of getting loads of data and trying to like pinpoint value. I just kind of use the overall market as kind of a gauge, and sometimes I can see moves which I think are going to continue to shorten, or there's like certain tells, I suppose, when bookmakers move that drop their odds. So that's the way that I do it with horse racing. But most of it is value based, where I'm just looking at prices that are above the exchange prices or better than the pinnacle no vig price.
So I saw on your website you like to do pre-match trading, so get in and out of position before the events even started, and you do that with the big fights. So obviously, I'm a big boxing fan myself. So any sort of examples of the big fights where you've had success with that?
I'm trying to think of one recently. In MMA, if I can get down on the early markets, which can be a little bit harder because the betting exchanges don't have as much money. So if I do get on, I basically have to offer an arb to the market and let people take that. So I do that in MMA when the early markets are not as sharp, and sometimes things really stand out. But I'm trying to think of a specific example. I mean, there used to be a really good one, which was when like England or big teams would play like Andorra or teams like this, and the BTTS no was always well higher than it should have been. It was always like 1.25 and it should have been like 1.16. So I don't think that edge exists anymore. At least I've not been using it, so I can kind of share it. But I would go in on the exchanges, offer an arb, wait until like the day of it would kind of day of the game, and then it'd go from like 1.24 to 1.16, and then I'd just take that. So I think I've shared that actually in a YouTube video before where I showed that exact process. So yeah, I don't do it as much anymore just because it's a bit more time intensive. But it was something that I used to do quite a bit.
Great. Okay, so do you remember when the first time you sort of were aware as a child or a teenager that sports betting was a thing that you could actually use your analysis and your expertise to make money?
Yeah, so growing up, I didn't really know a lot about betting. Like I never had any family members that were really into it. I had like friends I remember that would watch the Grand National, and their dad would let them place a bet. So I remember that. But my first introduction, I was probably about 19, and I was at university, and I was kind of looking at what I was going to do in the future, and I was looking at being a PE teacher, and that was kind of my backup. But it's like I really want to travel, and I don't really want to work and do the whole 9 to 5 thing. So I just put online like how to make money online. And poker came up, and it was kind of at the time when there was a big poker boom. It was on TV all the time. You might remember it. You had like Full Tilt Poker. They were advertising everywhere, and then Poker Stars were big. And there was all these young new poker players that were playing online, which were making tons of money. So there's a guy called Tom Dwan. Don't know if you know much about poker. And then there was another guy, a Swedish fella called Victor Blom. He was a Silder, and he was making loads of money, and he was challenging all the big guys at the time, like Phil Hellmuth and Phil Ivey and all these really well-known poker players. So I saw that and I was like, wow, this seems like a great way to make money, not knowing anything about poker. and I started to learn and get into poker. And from poker, I found out about match betting, and then from match betting, I found out about sports betting, and it kind of just went on from there.
Right. So you Texas Hold'em, you got pretty good online, offline.
Yeah. I just played online, so I was competent. I was never great. I would play just a really tight style, so I would look for fish, as you know, poker players call them, weak players. So I'd look for weak tables, and then I would just play like a standard kind of tight strategy where I would just go in with my better hands and hope that recreational players would make mistakes. So yeah, I got to the level where I was making money from it, but not a huge amount. I was probably making a couple of £100 a month.
And were you mainly tournament or cash games?
No, it's cash games, 6 max. Yeah.
Great. And okay, so in terms of sports betting, what was the first? Was it the Grand National? Was that the first sort of time you had a bet, or was it on other sport?
No, I started betting on MMA because I made an account with Sky Bet, who had Sky Poker at the time. So I was using their poker, and then I was like, oh wow, you can bet on MMA. And I trained MMA. I competed in MMA and kickboxing in my early teenage years, and then into my 20s. So I was looking at the odds, and I was like, wow, I like some of these odds. I'm going to try and bet. And I think on the first event, I won like 4 bets out of 4. And I was like, wow, this is really, really easy. I'm great. I'm just going to do this and make tons of money. Obviously, that didn't happen because I just got lucky. Like it was, you know, I just kind of hit the right bets and they went the right way. But in terms of odds and value, there's probably no value in those bets. But it gave me a realization that you can make money from sports betting. And then when I did match betting as well, I was like, oh, there's an easier way to make money than poker in terms of gambling. So I kind of moved on to that.
It's very interesting. You went 4 from 4 in your first 4, and this is you end up on your road to $1 million. If you'd gone 0 from 4, you might be a PT right now.
Yeah, possibly. Probably, maybe I wouldn't have bet again. It's
and that's also interesting that your sort of exposure to it happened so organically from sort of other interests. It's quite a unusual way of finding your way to it. It's like a pure natural interest, doing a little bit of research, which that led to this and that led to this. It's kind of like a butterfly effect that led you to getting fully into it now. So how old's your YouTube channel? I think you've got like almost 10,000 followers now.
So I probably did that a couple of years after the blog. So the YouTube channel, it might be like 5 years, but I think I did like 1 video, which was really, really bad, but it ended up getting like the best viewership of all my videos. It got like 40 or 50K, but at the time, no one was putting out gambling content. So I did that. And then it was like a year until I did another one, and I've always kind of just dripped and drabbed it. But it's grown quite organically. It's doing all right.
And so a question I like to ask people and give them freedom not to answer, but this doesn't qualify for you because you put it on your website, but it's whether you're an all-time winner or loser. I know you're an all-time winner, but can you break it down in terms of sort of, do you know where the sports that you are most profitable at and the sports where you've tried and just knocked it on the head?
Yeah, so I couldn't give you an exact breakdown, but most of the volume would be football, just because it's value betting and that's where there was the most opportunities. There might not be now, I'm not sure. But as time's gone on now, I'm betting more horse racing, and then MMA and boxing. I've always bet kind of bigger amounts but lower volume, just because there isn't as much.
Sure.
But at the moment, I'm really enjoying horse racing, just because it's daily. The amount of bets you can get on. If you can find like an edge, even a small edge, you can just kind of churn over tons of bets. So I quite enjoy the horse racing markets now.
And so you've done the MMA. You're an MMA fan, and so do you enjoy these sports as well? It's not just a bet. Do you watch the horse racing, or do you separate the enjoyment from the betting?
It's pretty rare that I watch horse racing. I might watch the odd one, but no, if you ask me about like how handicapping works and how horse racing works, I couldn't tell you, maidens and hurdles and stuff like that. I don't know. It's just purely based on the market for me. So I'll watch horse racing. I don't mind it, but I don't seek out, I don't watch it for pleasure. But I'll watch all of like MMA and I'll watch the bigger boxing fights. Like I really enjoy watching them. Football, again, I'll catch like the odd game. Like I've enjoyed watching some of the Champions League games recently. They've been really good. But I don't like follow it and watch like every game.
So what about so when you hit the 4 from 4 with your first few bets, since then has there been a single bet away from your sort of systematic bets, but a single bet where you've just thought, I deserve to pat myself on the back there? I've maybe staked a bit more, or I've taken a controversial view against the masses in the MMA or the boxing or anything else?
I bet quite a decent amount on Jake Paul to beat Mike Tyson, and I thought that was quite a good bet, because I really looked at it from like a business point of view, that it was on Netflix, and I was like, Jake Paul's a younger fighter with the more mileage, and I was like, That the odds just seem crazy to me. They really did for the age of Tyson, the fact that he'd barely fought. I know he'd had that exhibition fight with Roy Jones Jr., but Jake Paul's a lot better than most people think he is as well, and kind of learned that the hard way by betting against him when he fought Anderson Silva, who was a really good MMA fighter. But again, he picks the right fights. He picks guys who are like older, or if they do come from MMA, they have a skill set which is more like wrestling based. They're not really boxers, so he's very clever in what he does. And I just thought he knows the risk. This is the cash cow going forward. So I was just like, I've got to bet him here. And the odds were way better than I thought they should be.
Yeah, it was crazy. Jake Paul should have been 20-1 on, and he was 2-1 on. Yeah. And what made me convinced that that fight was only going to end one way was that, do you remember it was postponed? Tyson got like chronic, he was taken off a plane on a wheelchair.
Yeah, I do remember that, yeah.
And he lost like 10 kilos. And the fact that he went from having the fight as a 58-year-old to having the fight as an almost 59-year-old, and they didn't cancel it, they postponed it. I was like, because they know there's no jeopardy here.
No,
if there was jeopardy, they'd be like, oh, he's really ill, he's unwell, we shouldn't have this fight. But they knew. So when that fight got cancelled and rescheduled, I was like, it's definitely a Jake Paul win here.
Yeah. And I talked to a lot of sharp guys as well who bet way more money than me. And basically, unanimously, everybody was on the Jake Paul side. So it was just like, okay, that's like
I wrote a 5,000 word piece on it for sharp betting, our website, because I was amazed how many people were picking Tyson because they'd seen him hitting the pads quite well for 3 seconds. And that was doing so much heavy lifting. I thought I was in like a twilight zone, thinking, why are people backing Tyson to win this fight? So what about when you've got it completely wrong, where you've just thought, why did I bet there? Or with hindsight, maybe you thought I should have bet even more on it.
Well, yeah, like that Tyson fight, I probably should have bet more. I didn't go crazy, but it was a bigger size bet than I normally do. I've made plenty of bad bets as well, but I'd say, like, in terms of bad bets, the only time I'd kind of beat myself up is if I ever bet just emotionally, or I was just like annoyed that I've been on a losing run, so I was like, right, I'm going to try and bet, and that never really happens anymore. Like, early on in my betting career, it happened a few times where I would, go on a losing streak and get annoyed and then stake like double or triple the amount I normally would. But like, I can't think of a time when I've done that in the last 5 years. It's all quite mechanical now, my betting, so I'm quite happy with that.
Disciplined. So the other one for the sort of Tyson Jake Paul comparison was obviously Mayweather McGregor. I don't remember when that was now. Was that like 10 years ago almost?
It was quite a long time ago, yeah.
Did you get involved with that one?
I did, yeah. I think I had my biggest bet ever at the time on Mayweather. I think I bet about $3,000, which, for me was a lot of money and still would be quite a big bet. But it was another one of those where it was just a hype. And I remember it was weird because like I saw Mayweather and his odds were like 1.16. And I remember thinking, these are really good odds. Like, he fights decent level boxers and he's lower than this. And then as it got closer to the fight, Mayweather's odds increased and he got to like 1.25 or something. So that was the time when I was like, right, I've got to like hammer this. And then if it loses or it's a draw or a weird disqualification or something, I just have to write it off and say it was a good bet, but it lost. So yeah,
it was. I think there was even some like 1.33 around by the time of the fight. So the next question is, have you ever worked in the industry per se, away from your own sort of hustle?
No, I've done like little writing gigs and stuff for other gambling websites and stuff like that, but I've never like worked for a bookmaker or like in a shop or anything.
Okay. And what about, so over the years, how many soft books do you think you've been restricted by?
Pretty much all of them. There's a few smaller kind of independent ones that allow me to bet. So I can name them if you want. Bar One Racing, they're like a small Irish bookie that accept people from England and the UK. So they still let me bet, which is pretty cool. Although they've limited me now to a small amounts. And there's a newer one called Priced Up as well. And they've let me at like a couple of months where I've been betting quite sharp stuff. And they seem all right, but everybody else has limited me. Yeah,
Priced Up. A few people have mentioned them. Okay, so when you were able to bet on these sites, did you have a sort of favorite one in terms of functionality and just good user experience?
Yeah, I always like Bet365. Like, I thought their layout was really good. Obviously, there's a ton of value on Bet365. They used to kind of let you bet up to like £100 as well, even after they limited you, but they changed that a few years ago. And they used to give you quite a good run as well. You'd get like a year out of them, but that's changed from what I've heard. They're banning people quite quickly now.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of sort of like when you meet other sports bettors and recreational or serious professionals, whatever on that spectrum, if you could ask one question that would allow you to understand where they sit on that level of expertise, what would that question be?
I don't know, like, can you still bet with Bet365? That's quite a good one.
I mean, that is the classic. That is the classic. I can still bet with Bet365.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I agree. So if I'm in a pub and I hear someone talking about having a Bet365 account, I'll say to whoever I'm with, that guy doesn't know how to bet. You know?
I've got a good story actually. Once I was at a wedding, and my friend knows a bet, and he introduced me to his other friend, and he's like, "Oh, you two will get on because you're very sharp in betting, and this guy's really good as well." So I was talking to this guy, and he was like, "Yeah, I've got this roulette system. It's amazing. It's won me tons of money." And I was like, "All right." And he explained the martingale system to me, and I was just like, "Yeah, I don't think this guy's as sharp as you think he is."
Did you met him face to face?
Yeah, face to face. We had a conversation, and I didn't call him out on it. I just kind of, said like, "Yeah, I think I've tried that early on, but it doesn't really work long time." But it's like, "Yeah, I've made shitloads of money from this system," and it was.
Do you know what? I hear that once a year. It's either someone I know or someone I know knows someone. And do you realize how easy it is to like debunk that claim? And but it's frightening, and it's frightening how people don't reach their own conclusions naturally. Anyway, I've met someone who said he had an amazing roulette system. I was like, okay, here we go. Let's give it to me. And he said, right, there's a few parameters that go into it. First of all, when's your birthday? Okay, got it. Right. So that's how that one works. So there are loads of things that, when you're seriously into sports betting, you will hear things like that. Like, okay, that's not possible. Or often on TV punditry, you hear cliches that just aren't true. I hate in snooker. They'll talk about the second favorite, and he's just not the second. He's the underdog. We've got a phrase for that already. We don't need to. So, is there anything that you sort of notice in punditry or sports commentary that annoys you in terms of betting?
No, not really. I'll probably just blank it out. Like, it's to be honest, in terms of like talking to people about betting, other than like talking to people that online, like that really bet and bet big and are long-term winners, I don't really talk about it much. Like, some of my friends will ask me like, how's it going, and then if they show a little bit of interest, they'll just be like, just start with match betting, do that, and you'll make money, and then if you do that, come back to me, and then we can talk. And they rarely, it's very rarely do it, or they'll do it for like 2 offers and then they just get bored. So in terms of like, speaking to people about betting, it's quite rare that in my real life, like that I'll actually speak to people about it.
Yeah, no, I understand. Okay, and so with your activity now, I'm guessing it's mainly on your desktop or laptop. Do you bet on the mobile, other devices much?
Yeah, I try to. So I do like help other people out with bets on bookmakers. So I tend to use mobile for that because it's a little bit easier. All my own stuff, I just bet on the exchanges. I just do it from my laptop or my desktop.
Okay. When was the last time you had a bet in a high street book?
I used to place bets in Betfred on MMA because they might still be like this, but they used to be quite slow in adjusting their odds. So you could look at like the American odds and see they would change them, and then in the morning Betfred would still have like odds from the day before. So if there was like a decent sized move, you could go and take some value in the shops. But I did that a few times, and then the last time I went in, which was like 6 months, the manager was stood behind the desk, and he called his mates over, and he mouthed, "This is the guy." So I walked in, and he's like, "Management want to know what your name is." I was like, "Okay, this is my name. Apparently you've been going to other shops and max betting." And I said, "Yeah, okay. You're not allowed to do that." I said, "Okay, then we're going to pay you out this time, but in the future we might not do." So I was like, "Okay, whatever. Just give me the money." And then I didn't bother going back in because I can't be bothered playing the games. And the thing is, the max bet is like £200, and like in terms of EV, I'm probably taking 7 or 8 quid off them per shop. So there's 2 shops, so I'm taking like less than 20 quid off them.
Yeah,
and and that's how they act. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. When was that?
Probably 7 or 8 months ago. It's probably last year.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I'd understand if I was hitting like 10 shops or whatever, or doing some, but it's, I don't know, it's just, you know, and then you see guys that are just on the slots all day. There's all the old fellas, you know, placing bets on the horse racing, and it's just like, just give a little bit back. Is it really that much of an issue to give somebody 20 quid?
Well, that's almost, it's almost indicative of the fact that, like you say, you're having a £200 bet, and that's what they think is sizey, that it's sizable. They don't realize what you realize, that it's actually worth £8 to you.
Yeah, it's not a lot. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So
and the way they treat you as well, they treat you as if you're some kind of criminal mastermind or something. It's just stupid.
Well, even, you know, when I'm betting with soft books and I make my activity look recreational, and I talk to customer services with typos, I ask stupid questions like, do you guys work on weekends, and stuff to make them think, and I get invited to VIP clubs, then I start winning some money. And then when you get restricted, you do feel like a criminal.
Yeah.
Come on,
you shouldn't though, should you? It's silly.
But I think there are still one or two books who, when they restrict you, they do still do it in quite a gentlemanly way, like, hands up, you've beaten us, you're too good, on your way, sir. But mostly it's word salad. We're restricting you. You can continue to bet, and we'll review you in 6 months after you've bet for 8p a bet. So do you ever use the slots or RNG games either for fun or to hide activity?
No, I mean, I've used them in the past, but mainly just for like plus EV casino offers. So I used to do a lot of them actually. Like there is still offers available which are plus EV, but there used to be a lot more. So I kind of grind through them, use like auto clickers and stuff. So I did used to play them a lot, but I've never played them for fun or like recreationally.
Yeah, good answer. Okay, and what about betting on other things away from sport? Poker, you talked about, blackjack, card counting, stock market, property, crypto, anything else that's an investment?
So yeah, I've had money like in index funds and stuff like that. I've never done crypto. I looked into it a few times, but I always felt like I didn't just know enough about it. And even loads of people that were involved and friends I talked to, they didn't really know enough about it. Everyone was just kind of punting. So for me, it's like, if I'm not sure I have an edge, I don't want to put my money there. So yeah, it's hard to like quantify the edge, I suppose, with cryptocurrency. But yeah, I know I've had friends that did really, really well from it, but I don't know if that was just like timing and good luck, or if, you know, they did really know what they were doing.
Yeah. All right. So what would you tell your if you could go back to that first bet you had and say, right, this is a piece of advice that you would give yourself then that you know now, what would that be?
I think when I really got into betting and I was really doing match betting, like I didn't like, that was like my sole focus, and in a way that was good at the time because I was young, and I'd just come back from Thailand, and I was with my wife, and just had my son, and we had another baby on the way, and I just needed to make money. So my sole focus was just like grinding offers, you know, even if it was like I'd make £3 from this offer, I just like did that. But my physical health wasn't the best. I think I wasn't taking care of myself in terms of like diet and exercise, and that's really important. And especially as you get older, you know, you need a better balance. So I would say for anyone that really does get into betting, don't make that like your whole focus. Make sure you have kind of something else on the side, like fitness, or, you know, or even just diet. Make sure you're eating well, just because your brain works better when you're eating better food. Your body functions better, you'll sleep better, and generally, you know, your well-being is just better. So for me, it'd be like, yeah, if you get involved in betting, it's a great way to make a tax-free income and make an additional income or a full-time income, but just make sure that's not like your sole everything in life.
Yeah, brilliant. Well said. Yeah, and probably not said enough. And also, if you achieve all those things, then it's as a sort of a holistic approach. It is an asset to your well-being, not a negative. And we hear so much about it being a negative. I saw you were laughing at an advert recently on your Twitter that did make me laugh, and it was about, you know, I mean, it was something on the lines, if you gamble too much, you'll end up impotent. And I also thought that was parody, because I've heard studies that just the mere act of placing a bet can boost testosterone. And in that bet, you know, there's literally science that is out there suggesting the opposite of that advert. And it was like a half-naked man sitting in a grey room. Yeah.
I think the correlation they'll probably make is that gambling addicts don't take care of themselves physically and don't eat the right food, exercise, which will lower your testosterone, which will affect that. So there might be a correlation between extreme gambling addicts, but not just for regular, you know, 99.9% of people that gamble. There's no, you know.
And that's exactly your point. Do it as part of a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and in turn, that will make you a better gambler as well, because you'll make better choices and you won't get frustrated. You won't chase losses. So it's like, yeah, it's a win-win.
I agree. Okay, so are you still into the MMA? Do you still get in the octagon?
I still train a little bit. I wouldn't fight anymore. You know, I'll be 38 this year, so I'm too old to fight. And then once I had kids and stuff as well, it's like the risk reward ratio. Like when I did compete, I didn't get paid, and then when they were talking about paying me, it wasn't a lot of money. And I know guys that went professional and didn't make it, and it's a really hard way to make a living. So
what was your record? Did you have a record?
So in MMA, I was 0-1, so only one fight, and in kickboxing, I was 4-1. So 1-4, lost 1. So yeah, it wasn't bad.
Decent experience, yeah. So 38. Have you read the article I wrote called "The 38-Year-Old Rule"?
No, I don't think I have. No.
I sent it to you. So I did a deep dive into what happens to professional boxers as soon as they hit 38.
Okay.
And it's literally, it's not. There are a few exceptions like Alexander Usyk and so on, but it's literally once you're out of your 37, once you're 37 and above, you just you don't improve. And so many legends of the sport had their final sort of depressing loss at 38.
They do. So, that's interesting. Yeah. I wonder if that'll kind of extend a little bit now that people are kind of better with nutrition and training, and we've got a lot more kind of ways to help you recover.
I covered that in the I covered that in the
article.
Yeah, but it's like it goes back to Muhammad Ali, and it goes back like 30 years, and still even now, David Hay, you know, even recently there were examples of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because some guys book the trend because like there's guys in MMA, like there's a Cuban guy called Yoel Romero, who was just like a physical specimen, and he seemed to, you know, there's the rare exception, isn't there, where there's a few guys that can seem to go over 40, and then heavyweights, because speed isn't as big of a factor, they seem to be able to fight a bit longer as well. But
I think it's not just what they do on the night of the fight; it's the training camp at that age as well, and like. I definitely think it's a factor, but the modern technology obviously allows some longevity, but I still think you'll often, even talking to you said I called it a day at 38. I'm like, there it is. So often I hear it on podcasts, on TV. Oh, he's 38. He's going to call it a day. You know, it's still pretty strong. Do you have a favorite like innovation that you've seen in recent years in the sports betting world?
Not really. I can't think of anything that's really changed. I mean, there's a lot more like stats-based stuff, isn't there now, like player shots on targets and these kind of bet builder things. And I've seen that there are groups that do very well from that who can bet into that. So that's quite interesting. The exchanges have been good, like some of the 0% deals that you can get with like Smarkets and stuff through match betting services. That's pretty good. So like being able to bet at 0% is pretty awesome, really.
Yeah. Okay. And so, in regard to this sharp betting website, I know you're somewhat familiar with it.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you've enjoyed particularly from it, or anything you'd like to see us add when we get to sort of the next stages of development?
Yeah, I really enjoy the boxing stuff that you guys put on. That's really good. Sometimes I do find the layout a bit confusing. I think you might have changed it, but sometimes I'll be looking for like the latest boxing previews, and I can't always find it because sometimes it's at the bottom. It used to be on the homepage, but maybe that's just me not using the site well enough. And in terms of like your football stuff, the only innovation I'd say with that is like if you could like log the bet and it would, you know, you could log it somewhere, that would be pretty cool. Just because like when you bet a lot, like what takes up a lot of time is just recording it. So anything that can kind of give you back a little bit of that time is always a plus for me.
Yeah, bet tracking. So what we've done a few polls with our members, and we said, you know, because a lot of people have asked for bet tracking, and and we said, would you rather have more sports and more books and more markets, or bet tracking? And then when given the option, they choose the thing that will give them more. Yeah. But certainly, you know, enough people have said it that we're thinking about it. We did have it.
All right, cool.
In our beta version, when I was using it, I was tracking every single bet. So
that's cool.
It was also allowed me to compare. You know, some people have asked about whether the margin varies between bet placement and kickoff time.
Oh, right, okay.
So you know, if you had bet tracking, you'd be able to really analyze that stuff as well.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Okay, great. So what about, aside from your own sort of YouTube channel, any betting books, movies, podcasts that you would recommend to anyone watching this?
There's quite a lot of good stuff on YouTube now in terms of like interviews. So, like the Smart Betting Club, they've done quite good ones. Star Sports have done some interesting ones. There's some guys called TradeMate Sports. They've interviewed like lots of winning, big winning gamblers. They're not very active anymore, but if you go on the channel, there's some old ones with like American guys that have been doing it for 20 years. So there's some good knowledge there. I have read books and stuff, but I'd just say like most of them are probably out of date now, I would say. So. I'd have a look on YouTube, really.
Great. Okay. And so the final question, everyone's been asked this before, but if I was to offer you 5-1 odds about the toss of a fair coin and you get one opportunity to take those odds, one bet, what would your stake be?
As much as I could afford to lose, probably. So it's kind of similar to the like Mayweather fight and the Jake Paul Tyson fight. I'm always like, how much can I afford to lose without it kind of affecting, my life and my family's life and stuff. So yeah,
a couple of grand.
Yeah, a couple of grand probably.
Yeah. So actually, that's a good answer because those two unicorn events kind of felt like that.
They're very similar. I thought in terms of the value.
Yeah, great. All right, Ryan, that's brilliant. Half an hour. So, what is the? Where can people find you? Where would you people? If people are going to search for you, do you want to give your full name or your website?
Yeah, sure. So I've got my website, smartsportstrader.com. So I update that with my profit and loss. I've been doing it like every couple of months now, just showing kind of what strategies I'm using, what's working, what's winning, and what's losing. And there's like reviews on there as well. There's kind of more detailed breakdowns of the strategies that I use. So like value betting, arbitrage betting, match betting, stuff like that. And then the same on YouTube, Smart Sports Trader. And then I'm on Twitter as well. Which I think is SM Trader or something. But yeah, if you just go on my YouTube or website, then yeah, that's the best place, and you can email me there as well. So yeah,
brilliant, right? Okay, and so if final thing, if I was to ask you to give me a percentage chance that you'll make that million, where'd you put it?
It's probably got lower during the last few years because my profits have dropped. Let's say 15. I'll say 15%.
1.5.
Yeah, 1.5.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's not bad.
No, I mean it depends how long I live to, I suppose, as well. There's that, and and how long you can gamble in the UK and how much you can get on. That's kind of the biggest factor, I'd say. But yeah, it's difficult to scale if you're UK based now, unless you're working with people from other countries who can get more money. I'd say it's quite hard to scale things now.
Well, yeah, 15%. And so, are you? When's the next big update? Do you think you'll be posting? So I think you're at 190 now, aren't you?
Oh, 195 at the moment. So I will update at the end of this month, probably. Right. I'll put an update for the last couple of months. I think the last one was February I did. So yeah, it's just like I do have other stuff going on with betting. If betting was my sole focus, then that percentage would be a bit higher. But I've got work and I've got kind of other side incomes or side hustles, as everyone calls them now as well. So I think it's good to kind of have different avenues and not just rely on betting, especially in the UK as it's getting a little bit more difficult.
Couldn't agree more. All right, Ryan, anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No, thank you for inviting me on, and I've really enjoyed chatting, and I really enjoy reading all your boxing stuff, so keep up with the good work.
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, I knew this would be a good one, and we've got a lot of opinions in common, I think, so really enjoyed that, and yeah, thanks for your time.
Cheers. See you, man. Cool.